Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kaleia and this is going to be my fourth knitting podcast. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll probably tell that the background is different. I am back in Japan for school, so I just had my winter vacation basically because the schedule's a bit different, and now I'm back in Japan and this will be the new background for a little while. So hopefully it's not bad. The lighting that I get is not, the natural lighting that I get is probably not enough to film without the overhead lights. So I'm sorry if like the non-natural lighting bothers you, but I gotta make do with what I have. So yeah, I filmed this podcast actually a few times already now and I haven't liked the way that any of them turned out, and I've made some progress since then, and so I thought I would just share now since there's some of my projects are a little bit closer to being completed and I just feel better about showing them and I have more to talk about them. So of course, like always, I'll have the patterns and all of the yarn I've used linked in the description, as well as like my Ravelry, so if you want to check that out, you can do that. So the first thing that I have to show today and what I'm wearing right now is my Dagmar jacket. I am so happy that it's actually done. It looks like this. I'll put some pictures here too. It is, if you don't know, the Dagmar jacket by Petit knit. It's been a pretty popular pattern. It came out, I think, last year now, I want to say. I can't even remember. But I knit mine in drops lima and Garne Alpakka Folgetrad, which is the alpaca lace, and then the drops lima is a wool and alpaca blend. So I held those together and then I knit it with a 5mm needle. I initially had a lot of troubles hitting gauge. I tried the 4.5 and it was just way too small. I went up to a 5mm, which is what I ended up using, and I don't believe I gauge swatched for it. I honestly don't remember if I did or not, but I kind of just winged it, and I was gonna knit a size small, but I went up to a medium. So I think my gauge is somewhere in between. It's like maybe slightly tighter, but since I went up a size, my size of the finished garment is probably between the small and the medium, which is perfect for me. And I think it turned out great. I'm really happy with how it looks, the color of it. I think the drops lima and the alpaca Folgetrad look really good together, and it has this sort of like cool gray tone neutral color, and then I have the wooden like toggle buttons. When I was first knitting this, I think I didn't run into trouble, but I was really concerned that the armholes were really big. I thought that I might consider shortening them, and I saw that Rachel, I think, on the Twins Who Knit podcast was talking about how she shortened hers and how she thought it was just way too big, and that's what I thought as well. But I ended up knitting it to pattern because I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's fine and maybe I'm wrong. So I knitted to pattern, and actually I think the sleeves, the big hold sleeves are better. I think when I put the sleeves on, I just realized it wasn't as big as I originally thought it was. But it definitely is a really oversized fit. So I guess if you're looking for a more fitted look, maybe you could shorten the armholes. But I think altogether it's not that much of an issue that the armholes are really big. And I think it was just in my imagination that it was gonna be too loose. But I definitely think that turned out well. Another thing to note about the pattern that I've heard a few people talk about is the fact that the cables on the back don't line up. I don't know if you can see, but here they don't line up exactly. And I've seen other people modify the pattern so you can get them to line up, but that's not something that I personally did because I just wasn't willing. I don't know, it doesn't really bother me that much. So that's just something to keep in mind if you want to do that. The fabric, I think itself is a little bit less dense than the original would be if you use the recommended yarn. However, I think it's perfect for the springtime and when it's not too warm but not too cold, if that makes sense. This yarn, I do think that it is just a tiny bit scratchy. I definitely don't think it's as scratchy as some other yarns I've used, or like a rustic sort of yarn, but sometimes if I wear it too long without anything, my skin does get a little bit, not itchy, but it just isn't the most comfortable, if that makes sense. It's not like merino soft, but I definitely think it's gonna hold up over time really well. I forgot to talk about the construction of the pattern. The pattern is knit. You start with the back panel and increase out, and then you knit that part, and then you pick up stitches from the shoulder part here, knit the front, and then join, and then the sleeves are knitted in the round. So it's rather a simple construction, and I honestly didn't have that many problems with it. I did have that one mess up where I messed up like the honeycomb, so I had to go back and redo a whole section, but honestly, if I didn't make that mistake, it would have been smooth sailing, and it's definitely a well written pattern, I think. And I don't know, I think maybe I would knit it again sometime, maybe in a brown or a different color. So yeah, that was my Dagmar jacket. The next pattern that I have, or next finished object that I have, is the Alex hood. I finished this a little bit while ago now, maybe, I want to say a month ago. I knit most of it on the plain back because my plane ride is, I fly to Hawaii first from Oregon, which is 6-ish hours, and then from Hawaii I do another 10, so it's kind of a long time. But this is the Alex hood. It is a pattern by Knitting for Olive, and I did use the recommended yarn this time, which was the Knitting for Olive merino and their soft silk mohair held together with a 3.5mm needle, I believe, and I hit gauge perfectly. Actually, I don't think I gauge swatched. I just kind of winged it. But this is what it looks like. I guess I'll try it on for you. The hood goes on, and then you wrap it around, and then you tie it in the front. And then sometimes I like try to loosen it up a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of the hood. I guess I'll just wear it for the rest of this part where I'm talking about it. But this is my first time using the Knitting for Olive merino with the soft silk mohair, and I definitely think it's lives up to the hype. Once you block it, it is a really soft fabric, and I think it looks really good together, and it's really nice to work with. It's a little bit scratchier, I would say, when you are working with it before you block it, but it's not something that bothered me too much. I'll talk about the construction more if I take this off. I originally was gonna add, or I did add 3 extra increases. So you start for the construction, you start on either end, you knit to the middle on both sides, and then you seam it together, and then you knit this hood part. Ooh, that's inside out. But you knit the hood part, decrease, and then seam it at the top here. And I had seen Handmade by Florence add 2 extra increases, so I thought that I would add 2 extra increases as well, because I wanted to have enough length so that I could tie it in a little like knot, I guess. I was really worried though. On her Ravelry it said that she used 3 balls of the merino and 4 balls of the mohair, and I had originally just bought 3 of each, so I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't have enough yarn, but I definitely had plenty. I think I have it here. Yes, this is what I have left, so it's definitely quite a bit left. I probably could have added 1 more if I really wanted to. It might have been close, but there was definitely plenty to go around for the 2 extra increases. Another thing that I did, there were 2 things that I kind of had troubles with this pattern. One was the seam on the Kitchener stitch seam here. I don't know if it's because I added 2 extra increases or not, but when I was seaming it together, the stripes weren't lining up. And so I had to fiddle with that a little bit, and I'm not sure why it wasn't lining up. Maybe I'm doing Kitchener stitch wrong, and so the first like 2 are slightly off, which makes the rest off, if that makes sense. But I eventually got it to work, and I just seamed it there. And then the second problem I had is this area at the very top. I don't know if you can tell, but these are on a decrease of every single row instead of every other row. And it creates this sort of gap. When I was first knitting it, I don't think I was pulling tight enough, and I was getting a much larger gap. And so I was really concerned that I was doing something wrong. And so I went back and I tried to pull tighter, but I was still getting the gap. And you can still see the gap like a little bit if you pull it apart, but it doesn't bother me as much. But that was something that I wasn't really expecting, if that makes sense. But yeah, see, it sometimes opens up a little bit more. It's really only, no one else would notice it, and it's really not that big of a deal, but that was just something that I had to keep in mind. I was trying to pull like extra tight so that the gap wouldn't be as large, as well as when you put the stitch marker there. Sometimes it makes it kind of hard to like pull tighter, depends what kind of stitch marker you're using. So I think I ended up just taking out the stitch marker, but overall I think it definitely got a little bit better as well when it was blocked out. Yeah, the pattern itself was quite simple, easy to read. I didn't really have any problems other than those 2 things I just mentioned, and I would definitely be considering making another one of these in like a color, so maybe like a pink or a blue, that I could use next winter when I wear like my dark black or brown jackets, because I have a lot of neutral colors, and I think I should make things that are a little bit of brighter color, maybe like some sort of things that will pop. But other than that, this is a great pattern. I would totally recommend it. The last finished object that I have are the Kaisla socks. These are the Kaisla socks, and these are from the 52 Weeks of Socks book by Rachel Cooply. I knit mine in Drops Nord on a 2.25mm needle. Now, I had one sock finished maybe 1 or 2 podcasts ago, and it was a really simple construction. It's a cuff down, heel flap, and gusset, and it has this lace detail that's just made with yarn overs, knit togethers, and slip slit knits. It's I think one of the more simple but still slightly interesting patterns for socks I've done. I had no trouble with it except for when I was doing the second sock. The second sock I mostly knit on the train when I was going on vacation with my mom, and I didn't have the book with me. I did have pictures of the book, but for some reason I was too lazy to look at them for some reason. I'm not sure why. But if you've made this pattern before, you probably know that the instep, I forget what it's called, but this side here with the lace pattern, the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot have different stitch counts. So when I was decreasing, I assumed, or I had forgotten, but I thought that the part on the bottom had more stitches than the top. Now, that was a big mistake because that's not true. And so I decreased until I thought I had the right amount of stitches, and then I went all the way down to the toe, and I got to this point at the very top, and one of the sides had like 15 stitches and the other had 11. I was like, what the heck have I done? Like, honestly, I probably made other mistakes along the way that didn't help me decreasing the wrong amount. But I eventually then went back, looked at the pattern, and frogged all the way up to where the decreases were, and then did the right pattern from there. So it was a bit of a trials for me to get this sock done, but I managed to then like knit it the next day and just finish it because I was so determined. This is my first time knitting a sock with alpaca in it. I usually knit socks with just like a wool nylon blend, just very plain sock yarn. And I do really like the fact that these socks are really plush, and after blocking they're definitely soft. One thing I will say, this is probably not the best pattern to choose for this type of yarn because you can't really see the lace pattern, or not lace pattern, but the pattern on it all that well, since the yarn is a bit like, I want to say fuzzier, but it'll definitely have less stitch definition. But other than that, I think the yarn was a tiny bit scratchy when I was knitting it up. It wasn't the most pleasant, I would say, but it was definitely worth it because I think these socks are really comfortable, and after they block, they're definitely really soft and a little bit thicker than my other socks. Another thing that I will say is that the heel flap is slightly shorter, I don't know if you can tell, than most other socks that normally have longer heel flaps, and I find that it kind of bunches up here, and I'm not sure if that's because of the heel flap, because of the bigger stitch count, or honestly I have no idea. But that is just one thing to know about the fit of these. This is my first time as well knitting a sock in a 72 stitch count. The pattern originally calls for a 2.5 millimeter needle, but I think with a 72 stitch count, that would just be way too big. So I went down to my normal 2.25 and it worked out perfectly. So yeah, those are the Kaisla socks, and I definitely really recommend this pattern as well. Now I'm going to move into some works in progress. The first work in progress that I have is my key sweater, or key cardigan, sorry. It looks like this, and this is the back. It is a raglan cardigan that's worked top down, flat, and the round for sleeves, but I haven't gotten there yet. I am knitting this in drops lima again with alpaca Folgetrad for the white part because I have some left over, and then for the gray section I'm using Cascade Alpakka Lace weight yarn, so very similar to the Alpakka Folgetrad. I believe their price points are similar, but I do think that the Cascade one is softer than the Sandus Garn one, and it creates for a more plush fabric, so I definitely think from now on I might be using this yarn instead. I again had gauge swatch problems, nothing new. I first swatched and it was too tight, and then I kind of had a brain fart. This was around the time that I was knitting the socks, so I'm not sure what went through my brain around that time, but something was not right. So I went from the original 4.5 and then I cast on with a 4mm needle. I genuinely have no idea what I was thinking. But then I was like, wait a moment, what am I doing? And so I went back and I cast on with a 5mm needle because I was like, my gauge was a little bit too tight in my swatch, so I'm gonna go up a millimeter, or 0.5 millimeters, half a millimeter. And I do that and I'm like, I really don't like the way the fabric is working out. It's a little bit looser than I would like. So then this is like after I've gone through like a majority of this first part. So I frog it again. This is like my third time frogging it. And then I start up again with a 4.5mm needle. So that's what this is. Right now the fit is a little bit tight, but I'm hoping that when I block it, I'll just pin it and try to stretch it out as much as possible and it'll be okay. Currently, I'm working on the button bands. Ooh, if you could see, it's kind of curling in. Oh, that's not that side, that's why. On this side, working on the band, which the buttons will be on. I think this pattern is really nice. It's quite simple, but just enough interesting, if that makes sense, for a striped cardigan. This is also my first time doing color work on the wrong side. So when you do this color work pattern, the first time you do it will be on the right side, and then the next will be on the wrong side. I find that since it's a very simple pattern or simple color work like repeat, it was really easy to do on the wrong side, and I kind of liked it because you can see the tensions in your floats more easily than if it was on the other side. And so that made it pretty easy. There was, again, two things that I've kind of run into trouble with. One is when I accidentally forgot to increase on one of the raglans. It kind of comes to bite you, if that makes sense, in the rounds after, because when you have like one less, these stitches here won't line up so you can make the nice key pattern, if that makes sense. And so I went back and then redid it because I am a perfectionist and I can't let it go, I guess. But another thing is that when you're making these armholes, I find that I think I maybe wasn't reading it that well. It kind of got confusing here. As you can see, I'm not sure if you can. It's not in the same key pattern, and I was really worried that I was like doing it wrong. I had the right stitch count, so I was like, there can't be something I'm doing wrong, but it just like wasn't completely lining up. Or when I tried to work it in the pattern, you have to make sure that these are in line, and it just wasn't. And so I kind of just worked it out on my own and just sort of faked it, I guess. But it really shouldn't matter that much because it's just going to be on the other underside and no one will really notice. And if the stitch count is right, that's okay. So other than that, I haven't had any problems. I'm really excited to wear this, and I hopefully can get it done before it gets really hot outside. It's starting to get a little bit warmer, so I kind of gotta like hurry up and finish this. But you know, we'll see how it goes. I don't want to rush myself or stress myself out because I'm supposed to be doing this for fun. So that's my key cardigan. It's really cute and I'm so excited. The next work in progress that I have is in this little bag. It's what I keep for my travel knits. This is the IKEA bag. I kind of forget the name. I'll put it here. But I love taking my knits in this bag because it's easy to just fold it up and then keep it in my backpack when I go to school or anywhere really. But these are the Oona socks by Oomie Knits. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. They are lace socks that are worked cuff down, heel flap and gusset. Very simple, standard construction. It's in 2.25 millimeters and I'm using Opal sock yarn. It's in this sort of cool blue color, periwinkle, I want to say, but it's a really lovely color. And I'm really liking these socks. They're really fun to work on. The stitch pattern is extremely easy to memorize. I've never made a 1x1 cuff for some reason, but I'm really liking it. And my favorite part is I've never done an I've partridge heel. This is my first one. And it has this garter stitch edge to it, and I really like this detail. I think it adds like so much to the sock, but it's just a little detail, whereas like another sock with just a heel flap and gusset, it just like seems a little bit more boring now, and now I want to add it to every single sock I do. So you know, you'll probably see that in the future from me. But I also do like the heel. I have partridge heel. I think it looks really cool and it's really simple to do. Now I did kind of wonder whether or not to do size 1 or 2. Size 1 had a stitch count I think of 64, and size 2 has a stitch count of 72, which is this one right here. And so instead of there being 2 stitches in the middle of the pattern, there's 3. Usually I would go for like a 64-ish stitch count, but after knitting the Kaisa socks in the 72, I was like, oh, these are really nice and they fit really well, so I think maybe I'll try the 72. and I don't know if I'm regretting it or not. I think the lace pattern is definitely going to stretch out a little bit, and it's definitely more of a looser fit, and now I'm kind of like thinking maybe I should have done the other one, but you know, I'm not going back from here, so I can always knit it in a different color with the smaller size. I have so much sock yarn that I need to get through, so yeah, but I mean it still fits, so it's not like that bad, and it shouldn't grow too much when I block it out, so that's fine with me. I've never used the Opal sock yarn before, and I definitely find that it's quite soft actually, but it's definitely going to be more durable than like a Cascade Heritage, which is a sock yarn I've used before. It's a superwash merino with I think 20% nylon, but it pills so bad and I don't think it wears very well. So that yarn compared to this, I would definitely think I would go for the Opal yarn in the future. So yeah, I think that's it for that sock. I think that's it for my works in progress. I do have a gauge swatch that I've made for the Northern Augustins number 7, but I will definitely think I'll be showing that next time because I want to try to cast it on before I show you because it's not that interesting right now. But I will show some yarn acquisitions that I've made recently. I've bought yarn for the Northern Augustins, like I just said, but I'm gonna save that for later. It's also not that interesting, but I have a few sock yarns. I think I have a really bad problem with gathering sock yarn now. I don't really have a problem buying too much of like sweater quantities because obviously you need to like plan ahead. Whereas sock yarn, you can just buy like 2 like 50 gram skeins or 100 gram skein of anything and you'll know it'll work for basically any sock pattern you want to do. So that has been a little bit dangerous and evidently so. So I ordered some yarn from Lind Hobby recently, which is a Danish from Copenhagen yarn website, and they ship to the United States for like $5 shipping. It's really cheap and it comes really fast, so I do like ordering from them, and that's where I get my drops yarn. So I have a few yarns from them. I first bought the Regia Premium Merino Yak. I've been wanting to try yak yarn for a while now. I had seen this in one of my local yarn shops and it felt so nice, and I was like, you know what, I think I'll just get it. So I got this yarn and honestly I'm so excited to use it, but I've been knitting so much in gray recently that I've been wanting to try like steer away from that, but I really want to try this yarn, so I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do, but I'll probably knit this up soon. It feels it definitely looks a lot thicker, or like definitely closer to a sport than a fingering, if that makes sense. So I'm really interested to see how this will work out, and I'm not really sure what kind of pattern I'm gonna do. Maybe something with cables would look good. Probably not lace, since I think regular sock yarn probably works a little bit better for that. But yeah, it's such a big, like, I don't know, it's really cute. I like it. The next one that I have is another Opal sock yarn. It's just this color in, I'm not sure what color it is. I'll have it down below again. But it's like this grayish, slightly blue tinge, and I think it looks so good. I love it. I'm also really excited to work with this. Maybe I'll try to make some colorwork socks again soon. It's kind of a pain, maybe like just the cuff part or something like that. But yeah, I have this. Another one that was really cheap. I had a gift card, so I wanted to use it all and not waste it. I got this Lana Grossa wool, 80% wool, 20% polyamide blend, and I have 2 skeins of this. It's like a grayish blue. It's kind of more gray on camera, but it's definitely bluer, I think, in real life. But again, with more like bluish neutrals, I kind of have an issue with that. As you can see, these are all like bluish grays. So I'll definitely be working these up really soon, and I'm really excited about it. Now the last one is probably the most exciting. When I came back to Japan, I've been wanting to go to this yarn shop that's a little bit further away from where I live. So I went out. It's like a 40-minute bus ride from where I am. It's called Kuen Yarn. And I got 2 skeins of sock yarn. This one I was eyeing on their website, which is why I went. And so I picked it up. It is a 85% superwash merino with 15% nylon, 100 gram skein. And it's got these like speckles, and it's slightly pink, slightly white, off-white. You can't really pick up on the pink as much. Maybe you can from the camera, but it's definitely got both colors, and I just thought it was so perfect. Usually I don't go for very like speckled or any like patterned sort of sock yarn because that's just not my style really, but this is simple, and I don't know, I'm really excited about it. I'll probably make something on the more simple side to like not clash with the like speckles in the yarn. And I bought this to use with it. I was thinking I was gonna make something where you put like the heel in a different color and the toe in this color, and I don't know, they just go perfect together. This skein was about, I want to say like $20 US, so it was a pretty good deal. And if you definitely get the chance to go out there, I would totally recommend. I have been thinking about making a video about yarn shops in Kyoto because that's where I live. I find that I think it's a little bit harder to find some of like the hand dyers or stuff like that, because I've never seen anyone talk about this yarn shop before. I mean, it is quite far out, and she markets, or not markets, but it's also like half a cake shop, so maybe it's like a little bit confusing to find on Google or like Instagram or something. So I might be thinking about making that video soon. I definitely have a lot of yarn shop recommendations, and I would love to share that. So I think that's it for my acquisitions. I'm definitely excited to cast on some new things, and I'll come back with those as well in my next episode. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and I'll hopefully be back in a few weeks. I know it's been like a month since I made the last video, but hopefully I'll be back sooner. Realistically, probably not, but we'll see. Anyways, bye-bye.